Hello, everyone, you misfits and internet denizens. Welcome back to the reading room for another Fundamentalist Fails. And if you're here for the first time, wondering what's going on, we're basically doing Fundamentalist Fails. It's my Friday. It may not be your Friday. Your experience may differ, but it is my Friday. So Friday is Fundamentalist Fails, where we look at the mishaps, the gaffes, and the really bad arguments from fundamentalists. It's fantastic to see you all. Absolutely fantastic. It's great to be here. Thank you, Jedi, and big shout out to Jedi. Welcome to the Apostate Sisters. I think it's Patty and Nancy who I saw over, I think, on Ember's show. It was really good. And don't forget to check out Ember. My partner in crime upon occasion is Ember. And they do some amazing work over there, interviewing people, having discussions, just really fantastic stuff. Big supporter of the trans community, just marvelous stuff. Now, I do have, just first off the bat, I do have a goal set. I'm trying to use the goals. Look, you'll be proud of me. I'm trying to actually use the tools. So if I get 5 super chats, I'll do an early release of something I've been working on called the GUA program, or Project GUA. You're just going to have to figure out for yourself what that means. Please, guesses in the chat. Guesses in the chat. Go for it. So if I do reach that, I will do an early release. So I'm trying to just liven things up, just make things a bit more fun, and do what YouTube tells me to, because they are the all-consuming god of the internet. I'm joking. I don't have a god. I don't. Look, Google would be the last company. If I chose to worship a company, Google would be the last one ever, quite frankly. So, yeah. So what are we doing today? We're going through, and I found this video of Michael Knowles. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Michael Knowles, just be aware he's terrible. He's a terrible human being. He's an absolutely awful man. He's absolute shocker, quite frankly. He's part of the Daily Wire crew, so you can imagine what's happening over there. Sort of this Christian nationalistic kind of thing, and he thinks and has doing an interview with a priest about how England is taking away people's right to pray. We can have a discussion. We'll have a talk about it like I usually do. If you're here for the first time, usually I'll go through. This is definitely commentary and criticism. So I will be pausing often to talk about the things being discussed and what's going on. So if please don't tell me to speed it up or whatever. But yeah, it's fantastic to see you on the chat. Big Bad Mama, Deviant, Apostate Sisters, welcome. If this is your first time, Left-Handed Jedi, Marty, Mayo, just some awesome people in the chat. Phantom was first. Okay, I've got to say that. I'm obligated. Now, I'm never going to tell you what Project GUA is. If you want to find out, you're going to have to do something to make it happen. But I will be releasing it very soon. Don't get me wrong. I'm just doing this for a bit of fun and interaction, and try and get some super chats in. So if you want to know, it is definitely coming. Hopefully I can get it off the ground, and I want to generate some interest in it. So keep your eyes out for that. I'll probably do a community post, which I do admit I've been a bit lax in. So I do apologize for that, everybody. I really have to hit the community post more and let everybody know. Also, and I have a little note here, I've got to plug my Discord is also available for joining. And I've misplaced the link because I am terrible at what I do. Just 1 second, and I will grab a link. Oh God, I did have it here. No limit. Never. Okay. I'm getting kind of mixed up a bit. There we go. Oh, and we have a taker. Sorry, Jedi, I'll get to it in 1 second, mate. 1 second. Wait, here's to cats, the last divines on the planet, and all hail our feline mistress Bast, who shall forever guide the dead into the great... Isn't it the Lake of Reeds? Is it Lake of Reeds? Amazing how like people's afterworlds seem to sort of mirror the places where they actually live and find comfort in this world. Pretty funny, that. But anyway, yeah, there's the Discord link. So if you do want to join the Discord, go for it. I do have to Field of Reeds. Thank you, Deviant. I'm so sorry. Deviant Outcast, an Egyptologist. She's going to kick my ass when she next sees me. Field of Reeds. I'm so sorry. Lake of Reeds. How dare I? How dare I? Okay, so let's get this started. Do I have anything else to go through? I don't think so. I'm going to try and sort of get more content out in a timely fashion. I feel kind of energized at the moment. I'm not sure why. I don't know. I always feel a bit down around my birthday. I'm not sure what that's all about, but you know, it does happen. So now that that's passed, I feel a bit more you know, charged up and ready to roll. I feel a bit energized, and I love Fridays because I get to hassle idiots like this man right here. I really do. Am I being too harsh? Am I being too harsh? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay, Reed. Okay, Reed. Yeah. Yeah. And there's only one of you, so it can't be plural. I get you, mate. I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. Yeah. So let's get started on the video, shall we? And see what Michael Knowles has to say for himself. All right. Let's skip this. You're fooling nobody with the classical music, mate. You're fooling nobody. Yeah, the criminalization of prayer. Sure, we've heard this for a while now. Oh, they're going to make praying criminal kind of thing. They're gonna stamp out Christianity and make it illegal. Spoiler: no one is trying to do that.
I am so pleased to be joined by, I think, possibly the only priest in the world whose entire vocation is devoted to persecuted Christians, specifically persecuted Christians in the Middle East. However, looking around the West today,
well, that is true. There is persecuted Christians in the Middle East. Nobody's saying there isn't. That's the thing. But the problem comes when you sort of go, well, because Christians are persecuted worldwide, I'm being persecuted in my country. And that's not the case. You are not under the same circumstances as the Christians in the Middle East. So it's kind of this, well, if Christians are being persecuted anywhere, they're being persecuted everywhere. And, you know, this kind of victim complex that we keep seeing, it's like, well, no, you're not prevented from starting a church, going and praying. And people maybe in the Middle East are. You're not under threat of death for practicing your religion. Like, you're not being persecuted. Like, stop with this. Because there's atheists are also persecuted in the Middle East, but I don't say, well, you know, I'm being persecuted in the same way. You're trying to use them as a shield for your own behavior, and it's not cool. You're not actually being persecuted.
I almost have to wonder if his efforts would not be better spent in London than they are in Raqqa or Damascus. Father Benedict Keeley, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Michael, again, as always.
Here's the thing, right? Michael Knowles is famously anti-trans, right? Famously anti-trans. Why is it that the only time, like a cis man in a dress, doesn't bother him is when it's a religious thing, right? I was thinking this last night when I found the clip. I'm like, he's got no problem with this guy in a dress. You know, he's only got a problem when it's a person that wants to present as female in a dress. I know it's a vestment, all right? I know what it is. But anyway, what I was thinking, and here's the next thought that occurred to my weird little brain here. My next thought was, like, why don't trans people just start a religion? I don't mean this as sort of criticism, but like start I looked it up. Church of Transfiguration is already taken, but they could have the Church of Transgenderification or something, and then go, well, it's our religion to have all these things and dress like this and present like this and, you know, use these pronouns. And they would have a lot more standing as a religion for all of these practices than sort of, you know, just trying to get it through normally, because they wouldn't have to explain it. It's just a religious practice. You don't have to explain religious practices. You know, you don't have to explain why you think that, you know, wafers turn into the body of a dead Palestinian. You know, like you don't have to explain that. And then what I thought that was even weirder, I thought, why is it that something proven by medical science and supported by science and medical experts has less support than somebody's religion. Like, why are we going, well, we need more protections, we'll go to make it a religion, right? So what kind of, like, you know what I mean? Like, this thing has support from the medical fields. And yet I'm sitting there going, well, it might be better if it was just a religion. And then I thought, what kind of messed up world does religions have more protection than scientifically supported medical conditions? It's does anyone else find that absurd? I find it absurd. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that in. That was my chain of thought last night. You can sort of, you know, sort of see how my mind works from that.
Joining me.
Thank you, Michael, again, as always.
I'm only half joking about the persecution of Christians in the West. You've been to Iraq 9-10 times, something like that.
So there's no persecutions of the Christians in the West. The Christians are an incredibly powerful demographic bloc that has a lot of influence and makes a lot of changes, especially now that Trump has been elected in. They're not persecuted. The society may require certain things of them that is against their religion, because part of it is this idea that we get to dictate as Christians how other people will behave and how other people will act and how other people will do things. Now, the problem with that is you're not an island in a society. There's people around you. There's sort of people that you have to work with. So it's not enough to sort of go, well, it's my religion and it's always been like that. So just because we're not allowing you to carry on the repressive and oppressive traditions that you used to, doesn't mean that you're being persecuted. All that's happening is that your religious practice is going to be expected to fall in line with the society's morality. That's all. You know, I really think that I really would love to see their idea of persecution. You know, as he sits on his incredibly well-appointed set with all of his modern features and, you know, does a show for a lot of money. And while I'm talking about a lot of money, another thing, I actually went because I'm like, what is Michael Knowles all about? I don't like, so I actually visited what he's plugging here, because of course he's plugging something, you know, he's got to be. I'll just find the thing. Wow, I'm terribly unset up, aren't I? Let's see. Yeah, so it says, get your Michael's Knowles candles. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so so here at the Candle Club, I'm not even joking. Michael Knowles' collection of candles. He's that persecuted he doesn't have electricity. Absolutely. I choose to believe that. The Michael Knowles collection. Seasonal. The Apple Orchard by Michael Knowles. $48 for a candle. I mean, what? What? This is goop for right-wing racists. I swear, I'm not even lying. This isn't something that I've done as a joke. This isn't something this is actually the Sharp Dressed Man bundle by Michael Knowles. $149. Presumably the shoes are included, I would hope. PSL. I don't know what that means. What is PSL? What does PSL stand for? What is that? What is that? What? Pumpkin spice latte. Of course it is. Of course it is. Yes. Michael Knowles pumpkin spice latte. The Wise Man. The Wise Man by Michael Knowles. $48. Creme de la creme. I mean, are we just freaking our story? What's his story? How clean are these candles? Once you join the candle club, you'll never want to go back. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's... Wow. Jill thought it was the end of the road. Let's go. Her stalk took off quickly, transformed from a passion project into extremely sexual videos. That until she listed the Let's Go Brandon candle and the woke powers that be on the global marketplace decide to shut her down. Classic, right? It all started with entrepreneurial spirit, strong conservative values, and a love for quality candles. Tyranny by Candlelight by Michael Knowles. Jill thought that was the end of the road. Oh, sorry. Yeah. The end of the road, but she put it the fight against the woke mob. Oh, dear. Well, most candles these days are about as toxic as woke culture. Wow. We're the ones that are toxic. You're selling pumpkin spice candles for $50 a pop. Wow. That's, you know, I shop candles. I've got to see the Ben Shapiro collection. Smells like victory, the Churchill. You're not English, Shapiro. Citrus and birch, like $58 for freaking candles. The Ben Shapiro collection. This is disgusting. The cigar aficionado bottle. Aficionado. I don't know what happened to my brain then. The aficionado bundle. Mayflower Dawn. $64 for a candle. Can we get a size on this thing? It looks terrible. Size 7 ounces. How much is 7 ounces? Can we put that in metric? Please, for those. Man, that's like 200 grams. I mean, are you serious? Subscribe and save an additional one delivery every month of the Humidor by Michael Knowles. This is absolute terrible. Like, seriously, this is sad. I mean, he hassles people for being soft and not manly, and then he's selling candles called the Humidor. I mean, come on. Seriously? I've got no problem with candles. I do have a problem with people, like, you know, that's so good. That is so good, Ralph. Lots of small, wick energy. So good, mate. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do.
You've done incredible work defending Christian populations.
Yeah, and the Wise Man is one of his candles, and he's also selling cigars. I'd say smoking isn't particularly wise, I would say.
In the ancestral homeland of Christians, and then also including Armenia and other places too. Now it seems like the persecution might be just as bad in London as it is in the Middle East.
What a ridiculous statement. The persecution might be just as bad as London in the Middle East. Unless people are literally being killed, I don't think it's going to be somehow. I really don't think so. I'm so sorry. Hold on 1 second. I've just got to do something so I don't overheat. Just give me 1 second and I'll be right back. I'll be right back. I do apologize. My apologies, everybody. I was just getting a little hot. It's getting a little hot in Australia, and I just needed a little bit of air, a little bit of fan action. So to all my fans out there, thank you. Thank you. You're awesome. Absolutely awesome.
There's a wonderful biography of Gregory the Great, St. Gregory the Great by Sigrid Undset. And in this, she asks the question in a way, why, or he doesn't really ask the question, but why should we care about persecuted Christians in the Middle East? And even back there at the time of Gregory the Great, she writes that whenever the church was in trouble, it looked back to the early days, the cradle of Christianity. But now, I was talking to some friends in Syria just the other day who are so grateful for any help we can give them and are struggling. That ancient church, the Church of Pentecost, the Syrians were there.
Well, I mean, I care about people that are persecuted because they're people. I don't see them as sort of Christians being persecuted. They are people suffering, kind of thing. That's really what I care about. So this whole idea that, well, they're Christians, do you care about Muslims that are persecuted in other places? Do you care about atheists that are persecuted? And that's really my issue with Christianity. It sort of says, well, we care about the Christians, but nobody else, kind of thing. That's a bit weird to me. Like, why wouldn't you care about other people in general? But yeah, it's kind of this, well, I don't know from a Christian point of view how you should see that. Sort of some Christians see persecution as sort of what they should endure in the name of Christ, or it's holy, or it's somehow beneficial to their soul, or they will get some kind of reward. I know that Mother Teresa, who was a horrible person, by the way, Mother Teresa was awful. She sort of believed that the more you suffered in this life, the better you would have in the next life. So I'm not sure. I think he is more concerned about Christianity than he is Christians. And I'll say that another way. Christians are only the end goal to Christianity. That he's more worried about the religion than he is worried about their well-being. So he looks at them only to be able to spread Christianity, and when they're suffering, they're not able to. I would like to think that deep down he really cares about them in some way as people, but I don't know. He doesn't seem to care about other people.
2,000 years. And I was talking about what's going on in Europe, and they joked with me, well, maybe we'll have to come and help you soon. And I said, it's not really a joke, because at some point, but that's also why it's important, why we still, not for mercenary reasons, but why we help our brethren throughout the world, because at some point, getting closer, they may have to come and assist us, which is quite chilling in a way.
So, yeah, he's basically saying, hey, considering the way that this societies are going towards secularism, they may have to draw upon Christianity in other countries to try to influence the modern first world countries into supporting Christianity. And that's a really weird thing to say. I don't envisage any secular society that will go, you know, because he's talking about the Middle East as in Christians are killed by Muslims for being Christian. They will demand that they convert, or that they repent or renounce their erroneous beliefs. And I don't see a secular society where that will ever happen. Like, ever. I do not see it. I don't see it. I don't see it happening now. I don't see any indication that that will be the norm in the future. So I think that he's really using a slippery slope to say, hey, if we take religious freedom to say, you know, harass people on the street using preaching, then we're going to outlaw religion altogether. And that's a slippery slope. One thing does not entail the implementation of the other. It just doesn't. So we can outlaw disruptive activities and activities that harm other people, like conversion therapy, for instance. We can outlaw that. And that does not necessarily lead to banning of the religion or silencing their free speech or in any way taking down their rights in that society. It doesn't.
I heard, and I've heard of a number of these cases in the US and especially in the UK, that people are being arrested in the UK for praying silently outside of abortion killing centers.
They could be praying.
You know, and he doesn't even say abortion clinics, abortion killing centers. It's sort of the narrative that we've had to put up with over the last sort of few months now, at least. Actually, during this entire election cycle, you know, they're not abortion clinics, they're not medical clinics, they're killing centers. Even though things like sort of family planning centers, they will do things like contraception and other things. You know, they're not just about abortion, but, you know, we have to hear this rhetoric. It's not puberty blockers. They will label them as chemical castration. It's not sort of gender affirming surgery anymore. It's mutilation. Like this is the rhetoric that we've had to put up with over the last year. And it needs to start being called out. It is such a straw man to sort of go, well, it's an abortion killing center. That's not all they do there. Now, as for what happened, the UK implemented a law that basically says that people aren't allowed to do anything religious or anything within a certain distance of an abortion clinic that may influence a person's decision. So they're not allowed to protest. They're not allowed to do any of that stuff. I did have the law at one point. Give me 1 sec. I'll try and find it. Let's see. It's called a safe zone. I'll see if I can find it again. I did have it last night. This is terrible. And it's specifically for abortion clinics, right? So, all right. So this is it's not the law itself. It's a press release from the UK government of the UK. Abortion service protection zones in place in England and Wales. Safe access zones are now found in abortion clinics in order to protect women against accessing these services. Women accessing abortion services will be better protected from harassment or distress as protection zones come into force around abortion clinics. The government has confirmed. From today, 150-metre boundary. Now, for those in the colonies, 150 meters in imperial, in feet. So that's 500 feet, 492 feet roughly. So it's not a huge amount, like not massive, but it is sort of in the local vicinity of it. Within these bounds, it is now a criminal offence to intentionally or recklessly influence any person's decision to access or facilitate abortion services at an abortion clinic, obstruct any person from accessing or facilitating abortion services at an abortion clinic, cause harassment, alarm, or distress to any person in connection with a decision to access, provide, or facilitate abortion services at an abortion clinic. Police and prosecutors will consider each case individually based upon the evidence. However, this could include handing out anti-abortion leaflets, protesting against abortion rights, shouting at individuals attempting to access abortion services. This could also cover prayer, including silent prayer, holding vigils, any behavior where someone is intentionally trying to or recklessly acting in a way that might influence a person accessing the service. Anyone found guilty of breaking the new law will face an unlimited fine. It doesn't actually say how big the fine is, to be honest with you. It just says it will constitute a fine. I'm not sure where the actual law is. Give me 1 sec. I did find it last night, but that's okay. That's all right. I'm upside down. Yeah, Public Order 2023 amendment on. It was 2023. Okay, well, I'm not sure I can find it. Wow, that's frustrating. Ugh. No, that's an impact assessment. Public Order Act 2023. Yeah, this is it. Okay. So the statements are very, very loose, and maybe that is a problem. Like, I certainly won't say that is a problem. So this is interference with access or provision of abortion services. Interfering with any person's decision to provide or facilitate, obstructing or impeding, causing harassment, alarm, or distress. But it doesn't actually say what it is. And it goes through sort of 150 meters from any part of an abortion clinic, adjacent on a site that contains and is adjacent to a public highway or right-of-way in an open space within curtilage, any location visible. You know, no offense is committed. A person inside a dwelling where a person affected is also in that or another dwelling. So they sort of are saying that you can be quietly praying at home, and that's not true. If you're in another dwelling, it doesn't apply to you. So it's very sort of, you have to be out in public around in that 150 meters of the abortion clinic, and you have to be doing something which could sort of lead people to change their minds about the abortion. Oh, hey, Pragmatic Crystal. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. That is Pragmatic Crystal. Treat her with love and respect. Amazing person.
Praying to win the lottery. They could be praying for their favorite soccer team.
But he wasn't, and he said that he was there. So in this case, he said he was there to pray for his dead son. Now, the reason why he's praying for his dead son is, I believe, his ex-wife got an abortion. So he was there praying for that.
Or football team. But because they are praying about abortion, yes, they are being arrested. There are what are called buffer zones now. And this isn't, by the way, people holding banners. This isn't people...
Yeah, and that was my first thought, Ralph. It was sort of, what is the abortion clinic? A reception tower for God? Like, why do they need to be at the clinic to pray? That's the weird thing, right? It's kind of like, I really suspect that the guy went down there to pray because that's what he wanted to sort of silently pray at, like he's basically standing in front of it because he wants it to end. I don't know if that's the case, but shouldn't God be? Isn't God omnipresent? Why does it matter?
Shouting, people in total silence. The police approach them, ask them, what are you praying about? Are you praying about abortion? They tell the truth, and they are arrested. A man has just been convicted for praying silently about abortion. We hear that much used phrase, something is Orwellian, but
that's not true. He was never actually arrested for that, and we'll go through that in a second.
Is this not Orwellian? Absolutely extraordinary. Silent prayer, not in the Soviet Union, not in Iraq or Iran, in London, around London, England, etc. It makes me quite ashamed to be English, actually.
That's literally
Well, that's the only reason. Like, you know, the imperialization, what you did to India, that doesn't raise any flags at all. No, okay, it's just that. All right, well, I mean, sure. You know, throwing all of your prisoners onto an island to die, that doesn't ring any bells. No. Okay, gotcha.
A thought crime. The crime exists entirely in one's thought. In the United States, we have a law called the FACE Act, which was pushed through by Bill Clinton. And in principle, the FACE Act merely outlaws blocking the entrance to an abortion clinic. And they even were clever about it, and they said you could also be prosecuted for blocking the entrance to a church. So they want, you know, altars to Moloch, altars to God.
Yeah, I don't know anyone that's going out blocking entrances to churches, however. Do you know anybody doing that? So, yeah, I think that, you know, sort of making it equal was probably them reaching out and saying, hey, we'll treat people the same if they're blocking access to religion. But quite frankly, no one's trying to block access to your church. And I can imagine how angry you would be if somebody actually did. Can you imagine if someone chained themselves to the doors of a church, how mad these people would be? They would be absolutely livid.
They're putting them on equal footing. However, the FACE Act is never used to persecute the many people who vandalize churches and disrupt church services. It's only used to stop people from praying and demonstrating peacefully outside of abortion clinics. But at least for now in America, one has to be standing roughly, approximately in the way of a doorway or something like that. You at least need a flimsy excuse to arrest that person.
Yeah, so most of them are not flimsy. Most of them are actually people yelling and screaming at women and trying to physically block them. We heard this rhetoric from the right very recently when they said, oh, a woman was arrested for just standing outside an abortion clinic, and they sort of gave her name. She was arrested for it. But when you look deeper, what she actually did was went inside the abortion clinic. She blocked the doors with furniture from the abortion clinic, and she threatened staff. Like, it wasn't just she was standing peacefully outside. And this rhetoric, it's like the rhetoric of the right when it comes to January the 6th. The rhetoric is awful. They say it was just a peaceful crowd at the Capitol. There was nobody there trying to do any harm. It was just a protest. No one was even armed. And this narrative that no one was even armed and it was a peaceful protest has gone around like wildfire, even though you can easily find footage of Trump supporters at that insurrection firing guns into the air. You have video footage of it, and people are still, well, no one was armed or trying to attack anybody. They had zip ties, they had firearms. They were absolutely armed. At least some of them were. And then they come out with, oh, but it was Antifa that was armed. What are you talking about? I just, this kind of narrative that they play is just incredible.
This gentleman who was just convicted even turned his back on the facility to make sure that there was no way you could call it intimidation of any kind, and yet he was still arrested. There is a wave now, I call it the bizarre marriage, a marriage made in hell between the Islamists, who, by the way, would never be arrested.
Okay, so I want to switch to, so this guy is the guy that was arrested, or he wasn't really arrested. So what actually happened, and we'll get into that a bit later, but he was fined and he didn't pay the fine. So he wasn't actually arrested. It's a very big difference. I'm not sure what the law is like in America, but there's a big difference between an arrest and being issued a citation. Very big difference. He was not dragged away. He was not sort of arrested. That what didn't happen. So just as a baseline start, that is actually misleading. But I would like to play this and sort of at least show some of his point of view and see if he actually tells the truth about what happened.
Hello, we've just received the verdict from the judge in the case of Adam Smith Connor. She has found Adam guilty for his silent prayers. This is a shocking verdict. Adam, what would you like to say on receiving this verdict?
Well, I just want to thank everyone for the support over the last 2 years, since I was first accused of this thought crime on the 24th of November, 2022. Psalm 22 verse 10 says, "When my father and mother forsake me, then the Lord will take care of me. I served our great nation for 20 years as an Army reservist. I continue to serve my local community as a physiotherapist and a church volunteer. I never imagined that the nation I love and has been so good to me in the past could turn on me for doing nothing more than offer up a prayer for my deceased son. I felt like my government had forsaken me, but the Lord has taken care of me, surrounded me with prayer, and provided me with an excellent legal team with ADF UK.
Yeah, so he's not really saying the circumstances of what happened. I think he does get to it, but he's really very vague on the details. Like, he was arrested for silently praying in his head, and that's never the entire story.
I want to thank everyone who's been praying for justice in this court case. I've received messages of support from across Britain, America, Italy, and even in Bethlehem, the birthplace of Christ. I'm extremely saddened that the judge has found me guilty. This marks a dark and dangerous day for our nation, setting a legal precedent that thought crimes can occur in England. When George Orwell wrote 1984 in the year 1948, he meant it as a warning, not as a guidebook. It seems Orwell's predictive powers were off by 40 years, but apart from that, the notion that thought crime could become established in the British legal system was sadly accurate. 2 years ago, when this case started, a Christian friend of mine said that we are now at a time where Christians can be persecuted for prayer.
Yeah, so is it really relevant what your friend said? I feel like if that's what you relied on court. Now, I did try to find the court transcripts for this one. I did have to register with the UK law courts. I think that it's sort of they didn't get back to me. They didn't sort of get back. I did try to get the transcript. I would like to see it, but I've got some information from some independent sources instead on what actually happened here. But he's being very flimsy on the details and sort of, making it. He's kind of making it political, and I've got a funny feeling that is by intent. But he did lose and was convicted of the crime, which I don't think was actually praying, and I'll sort of get to that. I just want him to describe what he says happened.
But there would come a time when you could be persecuted and a knock at the door could happen in your own home. Well, if you live in Scotland, that time has now come. In Scotland, the buffer zones, you can be persecuted for discussing abortion in your garden if you are overheard by someone. If you think I'm being paranoid, this is only going to happen outside abortion clinics, think again. If the government can create thought crimes somewhere, it's only a matter of time before they create them anywhere. If you hold any controversial views at odds with the government, and we all do at some level, watch out. God and God alone gives us the inalienable rights and freedoms. It's the government's job to uphold these freedoms, not to suppress them.
Yeah, the problem is that you're using these freedoms to distress and harass other people. You're taking other people's freedoms away from them. And part of that freedom is the freedom to get medical treatment, even though your religion doesn't agree with it. And that's been the problem. Now, it seems like this law may be an overreaction to what's been happening at abortion clinics, because the pro-lifers have been more and more and more harassing. They've been more obnoxious and more horrible to women going into these clinics, and we're just seeking to protect them.
How can we ask British troops to put their lives at risk defending freedom abroad whilst fining, arresting, and in your case, Isabel, imprisoning people back home for the thought crime of prayer? I appeal to the activists in the abortion industry, civil service, government, and the legal system who have been lobbying so hard to make prayer a criminal offence to please look at your children and ask yourself, do I want my son or daughter?
Won't someone think of the children? Yeah, but they're also looking at the child and going, well, if they want medical care, should we allow some random dude to be standing outside the clinic for all hours? I'm not 100% sure we should allow that.
To grow up in a country where their very thoughts can be criminalised. Is that really the country you want your children to inherit?
Well, I'd like them to inherit a place that they won't be harassed or sort of made to feel horrible for going into an abortion clinic. That's the country I want to live in. And we'll get to why this guy was actually given the fine in a sec. Just let me get through this. No, I get you, Jedi. He isn't making sense. You're right. He's sort of waxing politic, basically. He's doing these dog whistles and these signals for other people. Sorry, just one sec.
So have we ended up with thought crime in Britain? It's because we have forgotten our first love and the principles upon which our once great nation was built.
The monarchy. It's the monarchy, isn't it? It's the king and queen.
We are a Christian nation. Our constitution is based upon the Bible. The king's authority comes from Yahweh, the God of the Bible.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that went down really well in court. I'm sure when evaluating the law, appealing to Yahweh really just set the standards, right? Like, yeah, absolutely. I'm sure he probably said to the judge, well, you can't judge me, only Yahweh can judge me. And I bet that went down a treat, a real treat.
If we are to restore our once great nation, we need to remember its foundations as set out in the Magna Carta 800 years ago. We need to return to
the Magna Carta was about barons not being... Basically, the barons forced a king into agreeing that the law applied to the king as much as it did to the barons, so they couldn't have property and things taken away from them. It's not the document that he thinks it is. It is a sort of a pivotal moment in history where kings started to be accountable, but it isn't really the everybody has these rights, i.e. the peasants had these rights, that he thinks it is. It was more that the king was subject to the law, which wasn't the case previously.
Lord Jesus Christ. And this court here has decided that even a silent prayer to the Lord God is now a criminal act. In John 14:6, Jesus says, I am the way.
Yeah, I don't need to hear the Bible out of this guy, but that's his statement to the public on sort of why he shouldn't have been convicted. Not a very good statement, to be honest with you. Not a very good one, because you'd have to be Christian to sort of subscribe to that. Without being Christian, you're like, so, but also he's not exactly telling the truth. So I have here The Independent, which is the UK edition of The Independent, usually very good for independent news, like just factual news. So he was given a 2-year conditional discharge. What does that mean? Basically, he's under kind of a parole for 2 years, like don't offend again. And he was ordered to pay £9,000 in costs. Now, costs is the legal costs of the state, basically, over this incident in 2022. So he's a former serviceman who silently prayed for his unborn son outside of an abortion clinic has been convicted of breaching safe zone outside the centre. Sorry, I will enlarge this for you. My apologies. I forget that people are actually watching me, and think I'm madly talking to myself like a crazy person, which I obviously am. Adam Smith Connor had his head bows and hand clasped as he prayed for his son Jacob, who he said died from abortion 22 years ago outside the centre in Bournemouth, Dorset. So yeah, he lost a son there, and he's coming to stand around it. So the safe zone around the British Pregnancy Advisory Service Clinic in Ophir Road was introduced in October 2022, and a banned activity including protests, harassments, and vigils. And that's the important thing, vigils, either in favour or against abortion services. So you can't even have a vigil there in favour of, you can't do a demonstration to support the abortion clinic. Smith Connor denied the offence of failing to comply with the public space protection order during a trial at Poole Magistrates Courts, was found guilty by District Judge Orla Austin, who said on Wednesday that what he did was deliberate. The 51-year-old was given a 2-year conditional discharge, $9,000 court costs. So the court had heard that the father of two had emailed the council the day before his silent prayer vigil to inform it of his plan, as he had done on other occasions. So this wasn't the first time he was there. It wasn't like he'd just sort of shown up and they arrested him. He'd told the council that he was going to be there, right? So it is sort of a deliberate thing that he is saying, hey, I'm going to pray at this abortion clinic. It's almost like he was daring them to do something about it. The court heard that the father had emailed the council. Yep, on the day he was near a tree, partially in view of the clinic. And here's the important part. Refused to leave the area when asked to do so by a community officer who spoke to him for an hour and 40 minutes. So here's the problem, and this might seem strange to people in the US. Police in Australia and England do have things called move along orders. We have that in Australia. We have that in my city. There is areas like, for instance, the nightclub areas that the police, if you're being disturbing or they believe you're being a disturbance, they can say, move along. You have to leave this area. Basically, you can go anywhere you like, but you can't stay here. They can essentially throw you out of entertainment districts if you are too drunk, being obnoxious, disturbing others kind of thing. They do have these powers, and it is an enforceable law. And you might disagree with it. You might absolutely disagree with it. I completely understand. I agree with it. The amount of times I've seen some absolute bogan just drunk out of their mind and the police have said, hey, you've got to move along. It's actually been pretty good. Now, I do admit that, hey, sometimes they get it wrong, but on the whole, I think it's a good idea. So it may have been a completely lawful order to ask him to exit that zone. Right? Move along. And I don't see why you would sort of say, hey, during the conversation he told her, and this wasn't the first time he was doing it. So the community officer obviously knew that he was there time and time again for extended periods of time. He's going to the abortion clinic to pray where he can be seen because reasons? Because he claims his son was aborted there 22 years ago. And even if that is true, why are you there now? Why are you there now? Like, you can pray anywhere you like. Why are you choosing this one place? So they asked him to move along. He refused to do so. During a conversation, he told her, I'm standing here silently praying. So what is you are saying is I can't pray for your son. And that's not sort of true. They're saying he can't pray for them there. He's got to move along because he is standing around a place that is restricted for a safe area for people who are getting abortions. So the physiotherapist of Hampshire was told to return after 7 p.m. when the restriction was not in place. So there's a restriction in place Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So please come back after it's not a safe area. You can't just stand around in it. The safe zone is a place for 3 years. He was handed a £100 penalty notice in December following the incident and was summoned in court where he pleaded not guilty. So he basically was given a penalty because he didn't move along when the police ordered him to. And he violated this law. So he was basically told to move along. BCP Council, that is Bournemouth something council. It's basically Bournemouth Council, had introduced the measure after grappling with behaviours having a detrimental impact on the centre since November. Yeah, I bet they did. The court heard that before the safe zone was established, the clinic had been a focal point for people to gather and pray. The authority brought in the order after a public consultation found that 75% of residents supported the move, so everybody's in favour of it. Well, almost everybody. So it just has a buffer zone. Like they're not giving him a fine because he prayed. They're giving him a fine because the police said you've got to move out of this area. You can't be doing a vigil or a prayer here. And he refused to do so. That's why he got it. And then he didn't pay the fine. Apparently he contested it. He didn't actually get the fine stricken down. He didn't pay it. And then he basically went to challenge it and the magistrate struck it down. So all of this is absolutely sort of, it's misrepresenting the truth of the facts. It's basically saying, hey, he got fined for silently praying in his head. No, he got fined for being in a safe zone and refusing to do so when a community police officer told him to move along. That's why he got the fine. He was conducting a vigil, and it specifically says that vigils there are not allowed.
Of course.
You would never find an Islamist imam being arrested in England, but this marriage between the left.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. I think that they're subject to the law just like anybody else. I think if they were outside of the abortion clinic and was standing there praying, that they would be subject to exactly the same response as anybody else. I think that's completely untrue. I don't think this man is being honest. I think he is just using rhetoric to say, well, Islam isn't being affected the same way. Yeah, because no imam would be crazy enough to go and stand outside of an abortion clinic, because that's just rude and wrong, and you would probably get into a lot of trouble.
Left and
because the people who follow Islam in England don't think they are the arbiters of the law and what's right and wrong. The other side, the Christians, are the ones saying, hey, Yahweh gives us all the laws.
and Islam, which is a very peculiar marriage, but it will also end up very badly for the left.
So how do you make sense of it then? I saw a video the other day of St. Greta Thunberg of the Blessed Sailboat. St. Greta has turned her attention away from global.
Yeah, this whole thing of Saint Greta, like seriously, nobody thinks she's a saint. She's a girl on the spectrum who was prescient enough to come to the realization that climate change is going to absolutely screw us. So the whole thing about Greta Thunberg is that she was a young girl who was brave enough to say what we're all kind of thinking, right? She gave voice to what we were thinking. We were taught about climate change. I was taught about it in high school. That was a long time ago. And we're kind of getting to the point where we're all standing around going, well, what are we doing here? And this young girl seemed to understand just what's at stake and articulate it for all of us. She's not a saint. She's just autistic. I thought it was very brave. I think she is very brave. And then she had to weather the arrows and slings of these right-wing people who think that God is going to come save us from this crisis. No one's coming. No one's saving you. We're it. We got to do this ourselves. And you refuse to because you think that some ancient Palestinian's going to come back and save you all.
Warming her previous crusade. And in this video, she was wearing a Palestinian keffiyeh and accusing Germany of genocide for supporting Israel. Of all the reasons to accuse Germany of genocide, that was her argument.
That's the new clothing of choice.
It is very fashionable.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're talking about wiping out the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, which is a definite concern. Absolutely a concern. It's getting horrible. But their rhetoric is, and because of their religious beliefs, that Israel has to be able to take control of all that area. Presumably, they think they're going to rebuild the Second Temple afterwards, which I don't know why. But, you know, that's what they think is going to happen.
All of our universities, you see it. How did that happen?
You tell me, Michael. It's really, it's obviously we've spoken about this before. The Jew hatred, which is anti-Semitism. There's nothing else. It's not. You can't be anti-Zionist anymore. It is, but it's also very much linked now with the hatred of Christianity. That always we know that phrase: the Friday people, the Saturday people, the Sunday people. It will come, and it's increasing. And
no, that's a slippery slope argument. There's no reason why we will persecute Christians in such a way that they're not going to be able to practice their religion. All they're upset about is that society is no longer taking moral cues from them. Like the guy said, well, we should be doing what Christians want because the law was laid down by Yahweh, and he appointed the kings with his I don't know, gigantic Yahweh stick. I don't know how it works, all right? But that's apparently what was happening. They're angry that they're not allowed to dictate everybody else's behavior. And we're starting to say in the secular community, we're starting to say, hey, what is actually good for people? What's actually bad for people? What makes people happy and content in their lives? What makes people suffer in their lives? Maybe, and here's this wild idea, maybe we should reduce the harm to people and increase the well-being of people, regardless of what the church says. And for that, I'm some kind of, strange thinker, because I don't think Yahweh is dictating all of these things to us. Yeah, hello, Andrew. Good to see you.
We learn, once again, we learn from our brethren in the Middle East about what happens slowly but surely as for example, in Iraq, the Christians are always, well, any country where Islam is in the majority Christian.
Yeah, I'm not sure you should be talking to an American about Iraq, quite frankly. I mean, if we're going to say what Christians did to Iraq, I'm pretty sure that George W. Bush and stuff were Christian. So should we really be talking about the million Iraqis killed in that war? I mean, I'm not saying it was a Christian war. It was definitely sort of a financially motivated war. But,
It's always second-class citizens. So we're looking more, I think, in the West, certainly in Europe, bimitude, Christians being second-class citizens. There'll be jobs that they can't do.
No one is talking about Christians being second-class citizens. This is really telling about them, right? They want Christians to be first-class citizens and everybody else to be second, right? That is essentially what they are after. And it's he's sort of given the game away here, because they want Christians to be second-class citizens. No, we want to do away with the classes altogether. You want Christians to be first class and then everybody else to be second class. And that's the problem. That's what you don't like. We're taking away your first class status. And that's what you don't like. You want to be the privileged. You want to be the special people in society. You're not. And don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I know you believe that. I'm just here to say, you're not. You're just another member of society. You're not special.
A lot of jobs, in fact, now in England, again, people are being prosecuted or told they can't wear crosses. It's really...
Yeah, so what this was they made it so if your employer basically says you can't wear a cross at your work, depending on the circumstances, that can be upheld. So there was one case of a nurse wearing a cross, and the hospital said you're not allowed to wear that cross as it could interfere with the work that you are doing, surgery or getting tangled in something. You're not allowed to wear that cross because it could interfere with your duties. The courts upheld that decision from the hospital. And it wasn't that you weren't allowed to wear a cross, you just weren't allowed to wear it if it could feasibly impede your duties. That's all. You don't have to work there.
I think a lot of the American audience might be quite shocked to think this is happening in England, your original home, or original room.
Oh, Left-Handed Jedi, thank you so much. Got to Scoot, Pain Spike. Take care, everybody. I'm not sure what you mean by pain spike, but that worries me. I hope you're well, Left-Handed Jedi. Get well, mate. I really appreciate it. Take care. Sorry to hear that, buddy. Really sorry to hear that. Okay, so Church of England bishops, Church of England. So basically, he's referring to the House of Lords, which generally has only lords in it, but bishops are considered part of the nobility in that system. The English have this weird system. The House of Commons is for peasants like me, and the House of Lords is for aristocracy and the upper echelons of religion, essentially, their state religion, which is the Church of England. Very, very strange people. Very, very strange. I don't know what they were thinking.
This is happening now.
I sometimes, when I look around America and I see things falling into total chaos, and they're transing kids and doing all sorts of.
That's not total chaos. That's medically supported. This is the thing. They're not doing it against their will. They're not I don't know what transing kids means, but this is a dog whistle from this absolute bigoted Christian. He really just dog whistles. I mean, all he's got is dog whistles. And he sort of alludes to these, Christians are persecuted and stuff. Then he goes on to attack trans people who really are the ones persecuted. They're told they can't do this and can't do that, and they don't have the same rights, and they don't have the right to the medical care that science and medicine supports. I mean, come on now.
Craziness. I have this nostalgic longing. I say, should we just return to the old world? I don't know. But the old country's gone too.
Yes.
Yeah, should you return to the old world? Do you remember why you got out of the old world? Does anyone remember why they got out of the old world? Why people left for the Americas in the first place? Does anyone know? Does anybody know? And I'll give you a hint. It wasn't because of the trans people they're trying to blame. Go back to the old world. It was because they were being taxed without being represented in a democracy. That's why. It was taxation without representation. It was because they actually had no say. Freedom of religion, yes, that's one of the reasons, because they were being persecuted, especially the Quakers and people like that, by other religious sects. Essentially, the Protestants were persecuting them. That is true. But another one was because the church and the aristocracy were basically had all the power and they had no representation whatsoever.
It's lost its center. When the center has disappeared, which is Christianity, the foundation of Christianity, Europe, the foundation of Christianity. We remember our beloved St. John Paul II and Benedict saying, why is Christianity not in the European Constitution? The foundational role. And it was erased as though.
Because religion doesn't have a special place in society, because lots of people have lots of different religions. And the reason why we're secular is because they all fight. They all war with one another. They all cause an absolute debacle. Like this whole idea of let's go back to the old world when the English were invading the French and fighting with the Spanish and, sinking each other's ships, and, France was attacking Spain and Spain was attacking, really? What are we talking about here? Do you know the wars that used to go on in Europe? The Holy Roman Empire making war on France and France fighting with England, and it was a mess. It was an absolute mess. Go back to the good old days. Yeah, Black Plague and Inquisitions for me. That's what I want. Why? It's just this. Well, I liked it when religion was in charge and people had no voice. Seriously, stuff you guys.
It just didn't happen. So nature abhors a vacuum. So what will fill the vacuum? The false religions, green religion, Greta's religion.
Green religion. I've heard, so evolution's a religion. Atheism's a religion. Now environmentalism is a religion. That one might have some weight. We should all just start worshipping Mother Earth again. Seriously, see them lose their frigging minds. Apply for tax exempt status because your recycling place is a religion. Like I said, I think the trans people should just make a religion. It seems to have way more protections than what they're currently doing. I'm going to say it first. I think there should be a church of trans, and they should apply for religious protections for everything that they do. And anybody attacking them is going to be a hate crime because they're attacking a religion. That's it. I'm calling it now. That's the only way to deal with this idiocy, is more idiocy. It's like the NRA and guns. How do we combat guns? More guns. How do we combat absurdity? More absurdity. Absolutely. Let's do it. Who's bloody with me?
But also the other religion of peace, which is filling Europe.
Which also has a green flag, by the way.
It does.
That's coincidental.
It does.
I'm
Oh, yeah, the color of the flag automatically makes it. Yeah, no, I get you. I get you.
thinking of that flag, the banners, that the invading Muslim forces have flown on the many attempts to conquer the West. I think Battle of Tours, first time around, Battle of Poitiers, rebuffed by Charles Martel. The Battle of Lepanto, rebuffed by St. Pius V. We just had the anniversary of that.
Wonderful. Then
Battle of Vienna, largest cavalry charge in history. The Muslims trying to invade Europe, but they're rebuffed by John Sobieski.
Now it's come on in.
Now it's come on in. Now it's open the door. So what are we to do? Because when I hear these things, it's similar to hearing about how in America, tens of millions of foreign nationals are coming into the country and they don't.
Yeah, that which tens of millions of foreign nationals are coming. Yeah, no, that's not happening. Tens of millions. Someone's been listening to Trump. Like, it's not like he said something like 2 million a month. That is not true. That is absolutely a lie.
Have our culture and they don't speak our language, and you think, look, really nothing against you, but aren't we allowed to have a country? Aren't we allowed to have borders? And one has this sense of urgency that the hour is so late, it might already be too late, in fact, to do much of anything about it. Europe, no one has any kids. The UK, no one has any kids. Even in America, no one has any kids. So you have this alliance.
Yes, literally nobody has any kids whatsoever. You know what's hilarious? They will complain about how nobody has any kids, and then they'll complain that kids aren't being raised religious, or there's too many single mums about, or what you are so full of it, sir. You are absolutely full of it.
Alliance of the left, the cultural left, and the business right to say, look, we need to import in all of these foreigners and to keep the GDP up. But then it turns out that the foreigners have a culture of their own, and so it creates all sorts of social discord, and it just doesn't.
What social discord? Like, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect, but what social discord? The only social discord is you basically going, no, your culture is terrible and you have to follow Christianity and stuff. The secular people don't have that problem, because they're not the ones saying, hey, you should behave in this way, you should do this, you should do that, you have to do this, you have to do that. No, we go, oh, multiculturalism, that's cool. Let's find out what their culture appreciates. And you know what? It's weird when you start to sort of drill down to it. People all around the world generally want the same things. Generally, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They want shelter, they want food, they want water, they want healthy lives, they want their kids to be able to grow up in a safe environment, they want the ability to self-actualize, develop as a person, they want jobs. They generally want the same things we do. What you're bummed about is they don't want Christianity. But it's fine for the people not trying to force Christianity on them. It's fine for us. And yeah, there's some problems with the laws and what they're following and stuff, but there's multicultural countries out there. There's Australia, there's England, there's the European countries. And yeah, there's some discord, but mostly it's because you're trying to force a culture on them. Mostly it's just fine. We have more discord among religions. They fight much more than just people, sort of treating immigrants well or badly. And I mean, it's hilarious that you guys are the ones treating immigrants like crap and then sort of saying, well, there's discord. Yeah, because you're creating it, you ass. Of course there's discord if you're telling everybody that there's Haitians eating dogs and cats. Of course there's discourse. What are you talking about? You're creating the discourse. The discord.
It doesn't seem as though there's anything to be done about it. So what do we do?
Well, there is. It's the responsibility of the church. We have to be very...
Oh, yeah, the church is going to sort everything out. Yeah, I forgot. The church has got a magic immigrant culture stick it's going to beat them with. That's great. Yeah, no, how are they going to do that exactly?
Bust now. I don't want to come in and it would be lovely if I could come in and give you a very cheery fireside chat and we could leave happily. But we've got to be extremely serious, become very tight, strong Christians again, good Catholics, have families, and be strong in our worship and our faith.
Is Michael Knowles a Catholic? He's saying good Catholics, and most evangelicals I know say Catholics aren't real Christians, because of course they don't. I don't know if he is Catholic though. He was descended from Italian, Sicilian, and Irish. If he's Irish, he might be Catholic. That is a very popular religion over there. He is a practicing Catholic, yes. Okay. Well, I've heard some, as is Matt Walsh. Okay, hello, I've decided that you should start your own church, Ember. It shall be known as the Church of Transgenderification, and then you'll get Amendment 1 rights under religion that for some reason they don't give you under medical supported scientific scientifically supported research for some reason, and I don't know why. Why you've got to have an imaginary friend to get these protections, I don't know. But yeah, just saying.
And realize, as you said, the hour is late. We must be extremely strong now, because I don't want to necessarily say we have to go the Rod Dreher route of the Benedict option. However, he has a lot of good points. The church has, at almost the start of 2025, is navel gazing at doing something called a synod on synodality, which is extremely strange. But yet we have the treasures of the faith to offer to the world. We're not trying to convert the world. Why are we trying to convert Islam, for a start? Why are we proclaiming Jesus Christ? Marvelous things are happening in the Middle East. I know from
why are you trying to convert Islam? Aren't you supposed to convert everybody? Isn't that your goal or whatever? I'm not 100% sure. I don't know how that's supposed to work in Catholic land. I have no idea. No idea.
Priests, bishops I know in Iraq, Syria, etc. Many Muslims are coming to Christ. Christ is appearing in dreams to people in the Middle East. Many thousands and thousands of people. They're being baptized, many of them secretly.
Many of them secretly. So how do you know? Like this does sound like a lot of cope, to be honest with you. The Catholic Church is kind of decaying, and we know this through statistical analysis. We know that Islam is growing, but the biggest bleed that Christianity has is to spiritualism, to sort of spiritual practices. But the nuns are growing incredibly fast as well, mostly because we're taking from all religions. We're sort of deconverting people, deconstructing people about their beliefs, and it's incredibly powerful. But Islam is growing as well. The one that isn't is Christianity. So I don't know where this sort of anecdotal kind of, oh, people are having dreams about Christ and things. I don't know where that's coming from. It seems to be just an article of faith.
But why are we not doing? We're almost being told not to convert people in the West. We must be robust, happy, strong Christians.
And Ember, my good friend and oft-time partner in crime and mischief, says, member for 18 months. That's incredible. Ember, that is phenomenal idea. Also, 2 channel babies. Can someone explain that to me? 2 channel babies? 2 channel babies. To channel babies? Am I supposed to be channeling small infants? I'm very confused over that one. 2 channel babies. 2 channel babies. Do you mean start baby channels? Are we doing meiosis again? Are we splitting again? Oh, I got you. 9 months times 2. Okay. Yep, that makes sense now. Okay. Yep. I mean, they're not babies. Maybe 2 channel embryos or something. 2 channel pregnancies. I don't know. I would be seriously worried if babies only lasted for 9 months. That would seriously worry me.
As Catholics again.
That is such a simple question that even I had sort of put out of my mind for too long, probably. It's so simple. It seems never to come up. Why aren't we trying to convert people? If we have a major...
You're not? What? What? You're not trying to convert? Why are people yelling at me to convert? Okay.
Major cultural and religious conflict that's come up with this clash of civilizations is simply out of love. Why aren't, if we believe that we've glimpsed something of the truth and that we get to practice the faith in the mystical body of Christ in the fullness of truth, why aren't we trying to bring that to other people?
Well, because just because you think what you're doing is out of love doesn't get you to, it doesn't mean that you get to do anything you want just because you think you're doing it out of love. That isn't real love. That if you're doing something somebody doesn't want to do because you love them, that's stalking. That's not love. That's literally stalking. If they don't want you to do it and you're doing it out of love, stop. Because it doesn't matter how much they, that you think they need it. If they don't want it, they don't want it. And just Lord of Shenaniganery, I'm celebrating a wondrous number. Convert, Mark. Yes, 13 months. I'm a believer. I'm a believer. I'm a believer. So that's the thing. Like, if you're saying, hey, I'm doing this because I love you, and you're saying, no, don't, and you continue to do so, that's kind of a violation of my autonomy. You should, at that point, just bugger off. Seriously, bugger off. And this is some of the things that we see as a difference between the United States and Australia. If somebody goes out and preaches on the train in America, that's just a normal thing. If someone does it in Australia, they are going to get a lipful from almost everybody around them, except maybe, the odd Christian here and there. Like, that is not seen as okay. That is really not okay. Trying to push your religion on other people. That's not cool, man. So I would like to say they're not going around converting people because they have a healthy respect for other people's autonomy and other people's beliefs. But I know that's not the case. They're probably not doing it because it is probably seriously frowned upon by the rest of society.
Far be it from me to be controversial, but I would say I think a lot of our leaders don't really believe deep down. It's the sort of end of that era, almost post-enlightenment era, but now, thank God, there are younger people, younger priests, etc., who believe, young families who really believe. As you said, it's an act of love to want to draw people to Christ. Either Christ is the way, truth, and the life, one name under heaven by which we can be saved.
Yeah, no, they don't. Yeah, your leaders don't believe. Well, that's sort of a bit telling, isn't it? The young people believe. Some do, but I don't think it's a great majority. I think that most young people are sort of very ambivalent about religion. They don't really care one way or another. There's bigger problems out there. There's the economy, there's financial strife, there's owning a house, which seems absolutely beyond their reach at the moment. There's much bigger problems than sort of, is there a God coming up? And I totally understand it. I do. There's climate change. There's all kinds of stuff happening. But I haven't met a big contingent of young people that are deeply religious. Maybe they're out there. I don't know. But I do know one thing, that they're definitely disillusioned with the current systems that we have in place. But the church is so conservative, especially the Catholic Church. It's not going to change things so there's more social equity for people, and that sort of there's less of a money gap between people. They're not going to change that. It's the church.
Well, he isn't. And if he isn't, I think I'll go and become a Buddhist, because why not?
Seems kind of fun. And so at least it doesn't seem to have a lot of requirements.
We must proclaim Christ.
You mean like vegetarianism? That requirements to be a Buddhist? Aren't Buddhists vegetarian? Yeah. Well, some are strictly vegetarian. Okay. So some are, some aren't. So yeah, some do have requirements, but you know, I guess why would I expect Michael Knowles to be, and in any way look up any other religion but his own? I don't know why I expected
To
that.
the point of martyrdom, again, bringing it back to my ministry with the persecuted, it's been so impressive when I've been there and you see people who refuse to deny Christ when ISIS come into the room, into the village, and tell them to deny Christ. That is their wish. You must deny Christ and convert, and they will not do it to the point of martyrdom. We need a little bit of martyrdom in the West, not necessarily to the point of blood, but martyrdom in terms of courage.
Yeah, I don't. I see that as kind of dangerous, like really dangerous. This whole idea that you should be sacrificing yourself for Christianity, even sacrificing sort of your life or freedom, because you're saying, hey, not to the point of you know, martyrdom as in sacrificing your life. It's like, well, then what do you mean? What do you mean by martyrdom? Because that has a very, very, you know, you can't say, well, I'm being a martyr, but I'm just sacrificing my, you know, my weekend. I suppose you can, but I think it'd be metaphorical rather than, you know, literally a martyr. I don't know. You know, martyrdom, its definition is usually to die for your faith. You know, and you could use it metaphorically, sure, but then we're not talking about the same thing. So yeah, I think he's being really hyperbolic in this one, because he's basically saying, or else he said it and then realized how bad it sounded, that, you know, we need Christian martyrs. But there are people out there that believe that. I remember watching, what was that documentary? I think it was Jesus Camp, where a woman was saying, we need people to die for Christ like the Muslims die for their faith. And it was horrendous. It was horrible. You know, it's just sort of the way she's sort of saying, hey, we should indoctrinate them to literally lay down their lives for our God. And it sort of takes you aback, and it reminds you that there's people, these fundamentalists, they do actually believe that Christians should not mesh with society. They shouldn't update their Christianity to fit with the society that we're creating, that the society should change to fit Christianity. And I don't know of a much more dangerous idea than that, considering the history and the atrocities that Christianity has done, especially the Catholic Church. I mean, don't forget, this is a guy from the Catholic Church. We can point to, oh, I don't know, the priest scandal on abusing children. We could point to maybe preventing people in Africa from wearing contraceptives and therefore making the AIDS epidemic so much worse. We could point to their incredibly well-appointed Vatican City, which is the richest city in the world by population. We could point to a ton of things. We could point to the insane amount of apologies the Catholic churches have to lay down, you know, from preaching of the gay people. Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Yeah, the Crusades, absolutely. The Inquisitions that they did. Like, let's not pretend that for some reason your religion has had the high moral ground over all this time. Let's not even pretend that.
Martyrdom.
White martyrdom as opposed to red martyrdom.
Yes. Yes.
White martyrdom meaning maybe
standing up for your faith, being like this gentleman being arrested for silent prayer, being in a job where they say, a doctor, for example, or a pharmacist, well, unless you provide these drugs, etc., or unless you trans people, you will lose your job. Well, then you have to lose your job. It may sound tough, but that's what it means to be a Christian.
Yeah, well, I agree. You should probably give, if that's your job and you refuse to do it, your job should probably go to somebody that is willing to do the job. Because providing medical care is not up to that pharmacist. It's not even up to the doctor, not an individual doctor. It's up to the peer-reviewed literature that doctors and medical professionals and people with very serious degrees have produced in order to check whether something is good for people or not. Like, don't forget, we had a doctor for Trump who was out the front of that White House saying that the last pandemic was demons. Don't forget that. Yeah, it's just it's real ignorance, Deviant. It is real ignorance. That is not a shirt, sir. And welcome, Grayson. That is a dress. It's a dress, and I will die on that hill. And I got no problem if he wants to wear a dress. I think it's cool, but you know, it's not a shirt.
In the way it's been for 2,000 years, why should it be different now? There was never such a thing as easy Christianity.
Reed knows.
But we've imagined, perhaps, over a period of relative peace, that there is such a thing and there isn't such a thing.
There never was such a thing as easy Christianity. Even when people hear that you've traveled to the Middle East all these times during.
There's no such thing as easy Christianity. I don't know. Like some of the bishops who have been living in luxury kind of have it pretty easy.
The height of ISIS. You think, wow, you're crazy. What are you doing over there? But then you have to think, well, hold on, who are you going to visit? If you're going there to visit the persecuted Christians, that means there are already Christians there who are withstanding the predations of ISIS and the other Islamic terrorists.
Well, that's why I think it's so important that we remember that they are there, they've always been there, and they should be there, because giving a little bit of money to help them to stay in their ancestral homelands gives us inspiration. They've been there from the beginning. People sometimes think, well, when did we bring the gospel to the Middle East? And sorry, it was 2,000 years ago they brought it to us.
But the order of things.
But they're there.
Well, yeah. We know Christians have been over there, and we know that Christians have been trying to recapture Jerusalem forever. That's the whole point of the Crusades. They were to recapture the Holy Land from the infidel. There's no doubt about that. I don't know anybody who's wondering when Christianity came to the Middle East. That's a very silly question. I get that. But this whole idea, hey, we should give money to the Christians out there. What about the Christians at home? What about the other people at home? What about the, people starving on the streets?
Trace their roots. Home as well is so important for those people. We've lost that sense of home, but they tell stories right back almost to the time of the apostles. I spoke to a Syrian archbishop way back in 2014 when this was all happening, and that's what he said to me. He said, "We are the Church of Pentecost. We were there when the people thought the apostles were drunk because they were speaking all the different languages. We were there, the Syrians, the Mesopotamians, it's all the Elamites."
The priests weren't, the apostles weren't speaking different languages. I don't know what he's talking about there. The passages in Mark that deal with speaking in tongues were added much later. It wasn't the apostles that wrote that. That was in Mark passages 19. What is it? Mark 9, passages 9 to 20, I think, is speaking in tongues, the Pentecostal. 16, Mark 16, 9 to 20. Yeah. So, this is the thing, like they weren't, and they weren't there. The church was there. Let's face it. It's a long tradition, sure, but that doesn't mean that they've been doing the right thing all this time. Just because an idea is tenacious over time doesn't mean it's a good idea. It just doesn't.
We were there from the beginning. A Middle East without Christianity would be, the entire church would suffer. John Paul, if you remember, spoke about the two lungs of the church breathing, the east and the west. If you're walking around with one lung, yeah, you might survive, but you're not doing too well.
And this is why I'm saying he doesn't seem to be concerned about the people there who are suffering. He seems more concerned about the effect that those people being converted or persecuted and are being killed or even turned away from the religion has on the church. Like, he doesn't actually go, well, it's terrible that they're being persecuted, they're suffering, we should help them. His motivation is more, well, when we don't support these people, the church suffers. And it's really telling where his priorities are. If it was me, I was saying, well, those people, they're suffering, they're being persecuted for their religion, that's not right, we should help them. He's sort of more, well, it's going to affect the church, and that's a bad thing. It's like, well, what about the people?
The lung of the east feeds the lung of the west, and then we breathe together as one proper body, because Scripture.
Oh, I see, Phantom. Yeah, okay, good correction. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think that actually happened. Where was that in Acts? Wasn't Acts Paul? Sorry. It was Luke. Yeah. Okay, so Luke. Yeah, so apparently, okay, gotcha. So on the day of Pentecost, the Holy Spirit depended on the apostles in Jerusalem, filling them with the Spirit and causing them to speak in tongues. The crowd gathered bewildered to hear the apostles speaking in their own native language. Some Christians believe the apostles were speaking in a heavenly language that was translated for those who heard them. Others believe the apostles were speaking in languages that were already present in the room. Okay, so that's different than what they're doing in Pentecostal churches, where they're sort of speaking in nonsense and it doesn't come through as any language whatsoever, like not even English. It doesn't come through as anything. That's not the same thing. Like if I go, you know, blah, 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 and it comes out as somebody's language, I get that, but it's not. That's not what's happening. It's not what's happening. Oh, thank you, Grayson.
It tells us we're one body. And if we don't care about half our body, one day they may, I was told years ago by a priest, he said to me when I was almost first there in Iraq, he said, "We will not forget those who helped us." And he said, "We will not forget those who did not help us." So that kind of started in a way my vocation, because I thought, well, I've got to help them somehow.
Yeah, and that sounds more like a threat than anything else. That's sort of going, you know, well, if I get helped, I'm going to help you. If you don't, you're my enemy. That kind of more sounds like a threat than a sort of supportive alliance kind of thing. I don't see how that's a good thing at all. I really don't.
It's only small, but it's such a joy. This couple I was talking to in Syria last week, he said it's very small what's happening here, but it has a big impact. We give money to one family to start a business, 4 or 5 families are then being helped, and they stay, which is also a purely political thing. They don't migrate,
Right.
So they stay in their homeland and don't pour into the West. So it's a small, but it's very beautiful.
Yeah, it's important. I mean, we live in time and space. We're incarnate creatures, and so if we allow the enemies of the church to just run us out of our ancestral homelands, that will, as you say, have long-reaching effects.
Well, and also they deny the actual presence of Christianity. We were thinking of Armenia,
right,
in Artsakh. What the Azerbaijanis are doing, they are literally erasing the memory of Christianity, which has been there for 2,000 years. They are destroying churches, blowing them up, blowing up the ancient crosses. In other words, Christians were never there.
Yeah, I don't see that as a good thing. Like, destruction of anybody's religion is a bad thing. The problem is that at least, look, the Middle East is incredibly complex. The other religions, especially Judaism, is seen as a major threat by the Islamic people there. And I'm not saying that the Islamic people are doing the right thing. Absolutely not. And any heritage site shouldn't be blown up. But, that's not to say that it's right that Christians should be, doing this martyr stuff over here, because where that's not happening? In America or in the UK. This is what I was talking about when he's basically using the what's happening in the Middle East as sort of a slippery slope argument, a sort of, well, if we don't make churches this privileged and first-class citizens here, then people will be blowing up churches and stuff. There is no reason to think that. That is a slippery slope. It's basically saying, well, if we pass these laws, then people won't adhere to the church. If we do that, then they'll start to look badly on the church, and then they will go and, I don't know, make some laws restricting where we can practice, and then they'll make some laws restricting sort of what we can wear and what we can do, and then they'll start to put us in jail, and then they'll blow up our church. There is no reason to think that will be a successive chain of events. Absolutely no reason. Because really what we're looking at doing is just making sure that you can't detrimentally affect anybody else with your religion in the society. That's all. That's it. The man that you're talking about, he could have prayed anywhere, just not in front of the abortion clinic, and that's all. Because the problem is that Christians would gather, they would pray, and they would basically deter people from going in, and we don't want that. We don't want you to have the position of being able to influence people's medical decisions. But yeah, this whole idea of, oh, but if we let it go, then suddenly people will be blowing churches. Come on, man, like seriously.
Of course they were there. What's that funny building that looks like a church from 1700 years ago?
Right.
But they're blowing them up to pretend the Christians were never there. And they did exactly the same in Iraq. I've seen it. In Iraq, ISIS dug Christian bodies up from the graveyards to say, well, Christians were never there. There are no graveyards. Of course they were there, but they dug them up.
How can people help?
Thank you, Michael.
Actually, probably about 3, I would imagine. The pound is actually worth more than the US dollar. So yeah, it's actually about 3 candles with that. So he couldn't afford the what was it? The well-dressed man bundle. He couldn't afford. Oh no, he maybe could just afford the well-dressed man bundle. Sorry, the sharp-dressed man bundle.
We just send money to support small family businesses, a very small amount.
Really, you got to wonder why God isn't doing anything in this equation. Why do we have to send money? Couldn't God just take care of it? Is that he doesn't care about his blown up churches? He doesn't care about his people suffering. He doesn't care that Islam's sweeping across it. It's almost like he doesn't exist, to be honest with you. I mean, it's almost like he doesn't exist. And then you're asking for your followers for money to support them. I'd like a little bit less input by the followers and a little more input by the God. That would be nice. If he's got such a big problem with it, why doesn't he do anything himself?
$8,000, $9,000, $10,000 goes directly, start a business, and they stay in their country. Nazarene.org with an S, as I've joked before, not with a Z, that's Mr. Glenn Beck,
yes,
but with an S.
Love Glenn, he's a great guy, but
good
this
man.
Organization, NASAREAN, for the spelling bee, and for the persecuted Christians, and for the...
But how much?
Small family businesses, a very small amount, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000, goes directly.
Yeah, just send 7,000, 8,000, 10,000, just about that amount of money, just if you got it lying around. Sure. Maybe I'm just poor. Maybe I'm poor. I see that as a massive investment, quite frankly. Maybe I'm just poor. Maybe.
Start a business and they stay in their country. Nazarene.org with an S, as I've joked before, not with a Z, that's Mr. Glenn Beck,
yes,
but with an S.
Love Glenn, he's a great guy, but
good
this
man.
Organization, NASAREAN, for the spelling bee, and for...
Maybe if you sell 100 candles, you could easily come up with that amount. Like easily. Just sell 100 candles. $50,000
for the persecuted Christians, and for the...
I think I added a 0 onto that one. I won't lie.
A really, really important organization, incredibly important work that you're doing, and an important subject that is getting zero media attention and has got...
Zero media attention. You mean mainstream media and not right-wing nutbags like the Daily Wire, basically. Yeah. So, the reason why this is not getting the attention is because you're lying about it. And you're lying about the circumstances. You're completely failing to mention he was asked to move along by the police. They didn't fine him at first, and they didn't arrest him as you're claiming. They asked him to move along. He refused point blank to follow a legal order from a police officer. He was fined for doing that, and you don't want to tell that story. So you lie. There's a reason why they're not covering it, because you're full of it.
Zero media attention for decades. Father Keeley, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. You're one of the few that does draw the attention of the world to this.
Oh, yeah. That's great. Yeah, no, you're willing to lie your ass off about it. That's fantastic. Okay, well, that about does it for Michael Knowles, because, what an absolute tragic guy. So thank you. So that was Michael Knowles sort of talking about the persecution of Christians. And I guess my major point is there are Christians being persecuted in the world. That is undoubtedly true. I'm not sort of, questioning reality. That does happen around the world. But just because someone is being persecuted in another country, you can't then change laws where you are saying, hey, Christians are being persecuted all over the world. no, you're not being persecuted. You're being held to the same standard as everybody else. And that priest gave it away. He's like, they want us to be second-class citizens. Yeah, you're first-class citizens, and everyone else comes afterwards. We want to stop that. So if you want to put it like we want you to be second-class, the same as everybody else, then yeah. But they've been in this privileged position for so long. They honestly do not see why they should be equal to everybody else in society. They want to have that first priority position and everything protected for them. They're not being persecuted over here. They're just being held to the same level as everybody else. And if the government makes a law that, hey, you can't hold a vigil, you can't have silent prayer within X amount of an abortion clinic, they're not stopping you from praying. You can go anywhere to pray. In fact, you can go and pray there, as the order only was between 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. He could have easily come back and had a twilight vigil for all they cared, right? He could have done a number of other things. Just while they're open, we don't want people hanging around out the front who could make them fearful that there's going to be some consequences from religious people if they follow through on their abortion. He was told to move along. He refused to, point blank, which was a legal order. He got fined for it. And now they want to spin the narrative it's all about, the fact that he was praying, not that he refused a legal request from a community police officer that was entrusted to keep the area free of religious influence over abortions. But it is just another way that they are trying to inflict themselves upon the rest of society. If we say, hey, people shouldn't be sort of denigrated and influenced and looked down upon and yelled at and all of these things for getting an abortion, they disagree. Well, it's tough. You don't get to decide what is right and wrong for society anymore, because we've had enough of that. The way they were saying, well, let's go back to the good old days of religion before America was founded. Do you really? Like, you could just be accused of being a witch and the priest would come along, and if you had epilepsy or something, you were in grievous fear of your life. Do we want to go back to the time where women were seen at the church of you're not allowed to talk in the church because that was the men's domain? Do we really want to go back? The Catholic Church has had their time to shape the world, and it became a brutal and horrible world under their watch. Yeah, it was great for the white priests in power. It was great for them. Not so hot for everybody else. Not so great. And that's not to say that churches don't do good work, that they don't do charity and they don't do these things that help people. Again, I'm not ignorant of reality. They do charity and things like that. But they also can't be expected to demand, they cannot demand this privileged place in society where the law is given by God and everything adheres to God. So the church is the one that lays down what's right and wrong. No, we have a new criteria of what's right and wrong. It's what's good for people and what is bad for people. And we have to make this society work. So secularism, in essence, is saying that no religion has a privileged place and that we're all supposed to be equal under the law. The times of religious privilege, of being the first treated in society, that's over. And somehow they've got to get it through their heads that we're not going back to the time where a privileged religious sect or a religion would have this place in society that everybody else had to listen to their views on what's right, what's wrong, and what they should do and what they shouldn't do. That time is gone, and I swear we're not going back. I mean, I sound like Kamala Harris, but apparently we are going back, which is just nuts to me. But I really liked what she said. Like, let's not go back to the past. Let's move forward. But thank you so much for joining me, everybody. That was Michael Knowles being a really, really horrible person and misrepresenting stuff, as he does. You know, it seems to be what's happening. Oh, hey, Neil. Good to see you. Well, you know, I had this question. I had this question for Neil. I put him on the spot. It was sort of like, where were you? You were on Skep Talk? Was it Skeptic Talk? I think. And the question was, if you have a democracy and that democracy votes in a horrible leader, at what point do you say, well, that democracy shouldn't have voted in the leader and let's resist what they are doing? And I think it's at the point where, and I agree with Neil on this, him and Justin, I believe it was Justin, my moose and, you know, Putin loving friend, that they had a really nuanced approach, and that's when it starts to endanger democracy itself, when it starts to turn into a totalitarian dictatorship, when that democracy is under threat. So a totalitarian minded leader that's still being constrained by the rules of democracy, I think democracy can get away with that. I think it can survive that because it survived it once before. It definitely survived Trump once before. But apparently we are now doing it again. So, but I think that when the time comes, when your rights and democracy is actually being threatened, then you've got to go out and protest. And if they clamp down on the protest, we've got to stand up for it. I'm glad I'm not in that country. Do I want to support people over there? Yeah. Do I have a right to? No, I'm not a citizen of the country. I don't really have a right to determine anything for that country. I'm just very heartbroken that they've gone to go that time. Yeah. Deorbits or crashes them is another way to put it, Rembrandt. But yeah, when others are being hurt, yeah, I kind of agree with that, Andrew. And people have different takes, but I think there's a point at which, you know, sort of, so standing up for the democracy has to be something we have to do. And you know, I'm not suggesting violent revolution. I'm certainly not suggesting that. But I look to people like Mahatma Gandhi, who did a lot with peaceful civil disobedience, just refusing to obey the laws being put down. I think that sort of we can look to figures like that. Not that Gandhi was perfect, but he brought India to a standstill and essentially toppled the Raj, the aristocracy put in by the British, by just not attacking, but just refusing to comply with their orders. And I think that may be a way forward. That when the leaders that be realize that if they cross certain lines and break the social contract basically says that I, as a citizen, will do what the government tells me and obey the laws they hand down in exchange for certain inalienable rights that they will give me, like the right to bodily autonomy, the right to liberty, and the right to protest, the right for freedom of speech. There's all these rights that we don't let the government violate. And exchange, we do essentially what they want. That's essentially the social contract. If they break the social contract, a lot of people will start going, well, I don't have to do what the government tells me. And it's very dangerous. It is incredibly dangerous. I certainly don't want to say it glibly, but it is better. Civil disobedience and non-violent disobedience is better than what essentially would be a civil war or rebellion, an insurrection in the country. That would be better. So I advocate for non-violent civil disobedience and not violent upheaval. That's what I advocate for. I'll switch citizen. No. I like Australia. I like Australia. What are you talking about? No, no, absolutely not. Anyway, I did have a goal to reach, but I didn't reach it. So there will be no goal reached. So, but that's okay. That's all right. It's no problem. I don't really mind. I was just doing it to check it out. To be honest with you, I was just mucking around with it to see how it worked and everything. It's all good. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me, everybody. I hope you stay well. Be kind to yourself. Take care of yourself. Be kind to each other. Take care of each other, especially in the months coming up. I will be back next week with another Fundamentalist Fails. Take good care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks, everybody.